Most of us spend our lives chasing the same basic targets: money, career, the right relationship. But behind all that ambition is a single quieter motive. We just want to be at ease. We are trying to cure a persistent sense of physical and psychological disease. Eventually, a rare realization hits a few people. They look at those who have actually reached the finish line. The high power executives, the famous celebrities, the isolated billionaires, and notice they are often deeply stressed. The external achievements didn't actually cure their internal disturbance. This triggers a pivot. The seeker realizes chasing world-day success is like walking towards a desert mirage. The closer you get, the further it recedes. So they drop the material ambition and decide to fix the root of the problem, the mind itself. But simply swapping out a material target for a spiritual one doesn't stop the chase. The restless nature of the pursuit remains exactly the same. Welcome to the spiritual marketplace. Here the seeker applies intense effort to meditation systems, silent retreats, and specialized techniques, all in a desperate attempt to force their agitated mind into a state of calm. What often happens next is a trap called spiritual materialism. The ego simply trades its old status symbols for new ones. Instead of bragging about a luxury car or a high salary, the person now identifies with following a superior guru or achieving deeper meditative experiences than anyone else. Yet a subtle tension persists. You can find practitioners who have maintained rigorous discipline for 10 or 20 years only to discover that their baseline inner conflict, the greed and anger, hasn't been resolved. It's just been suppressed. This leaves us with an uncomfortable question. If both the worldly hustle and decades of strict spiritual practice fail to produce lasting peace, how does anyone actually escape this internal disturbance? To answer that, the ancient Indian manuscript known as the Ashtavakra Gita draws an absolute line between two types of issues: a real problem and an imagined problem. A real problem demands real world effort. If you have a broken leg, you go to a doctor, you get a cast, and you undergo physical therapy. Action and effort directly solve the issue. But an imagined problem works differently. Imagine someone who firmly believes a ghost sits on their head. They perform complex rituals to remove it. But every ritual secretly confirms to the brain that the ghost is real. More effort only makes the false conviction stronger. When a problem is entirely imaginary, applying effort to solve it is the exact mechanism that keeps the illusion alive. The Ashtavakra Gita applies this exact logic to spiritual practice. When a seeker uses technique to constantly try and fix their mind, they are reinforcing the hidden assumption that their true self is deeply broken to begin with. It is like desperately hiring a lawyer, paying enormous legal fees, and spending years in court trying to secure a divorce, despite the fact that you were never actually married. This leads to the most radical diagnostic claim of the Ashtavakra Gita. The mind cannot be made permanently peaceful because the mind, as an independent, broken entity that requires repair, does not actually exist in the way we assume. You cannot seek liberation from psychological disturbance if the bondage itself is just a conceptual illusion. So, if this broken mind is an illusion, we have to ask the ultimate subtractive question: where exactly is this separate I that you are trying so hard to make it peaceful? Stripping away the ego reveals the true self, or the Atman, formless, changeless, and non-dual. Without boundaries, it cannot undergo deformation or be broken. And because this existence is non-dual, there is an independent second thing to collide with. Ultimate disturbance is impossible. If this true self cannot be disturbed, then the frantic search for a cure is meaningless. There is absolutely nothing inside you that requires spiritual repair. Think of a restless ocean wave that spends its entire life practicing spiritual techniques, hoping that one day it will finally be worthy enough to merge with the water. The irony is that the wave is water before it rose, it is water while it crashes, and it will be water when it settles. It never needed a technique to become what it already is. This is what the Ashtavakra Gita calls Sahaja Samadhi. It is the shift away from treating peace as a distant goal requiring intense effort and instead moving towards the effortless recognition of what is already true. Liberation isn't an event where a broken person earns freedom. It's the quiet realization that you were never bound to begin with.